From Los Angeles, I'm Eddie Garcia. He is Doug Stolhand. Thanks for joining us for another edition of the Puck Podcast. It is Sunday, July 6th, 2025. This is the first period of a three-period podcast. The first period, which some of you are watching on YouTube, will cover all the major news from the past week in the NHL, including all the major signings in free agency and other moves that went down. Second period is our interview or special feature segment. Doug and I will be discussing what a couple of NHL teams' lineups would look like if they could use all the available players that they have drafted that are active in the NHL. Third period is our fan feedback segment where we read listener emails and have our off-ice report tell you what's going on in our lives. You can find all three periods on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcasts. If you like what you're seeing, please subscribe on YouTube and get notified when our latest shows are out.
Eddie and I have been doing this here show for 19 full seasons, and we have been members of the NHL media for over 30 years combined. We've been members of sports media for over 50 years combined. So we bring a lot of experience. And in this show, every single week, we cover all 32 teams equally. He's a Kings fan. I'm a Ducks fan, but that doesn't matter. We cover all 32 teams as if they were our own. And so if it happens in any city and is a big story, we cover it here each and every week. But every week we start with the biggest story from around the league, wherever that may be. And for that, I turn it over to my good friend, my co-host, Eddie Garcia.
Thank you, Doug Stolhand. And we, of course, will start with the free agency period on July the 1st, although a lot of things went down the day before free agency got underway that kind of took a lot of the steam out of the big day, but there was still lots to talk about. We're going to hit on every NHL team, and we will start with Doug's Anaheim Ducks because we're going in alphabetical order. Doug, as far as moves in free agency, I would say just one move of note for a team that has a ton of cap space. That is Mikael Granlund, 33-year-old forward, signs a 3-year deal worth $21 million. He'll get $7 million per season from the Ducks.
Yeah, they needed a top six forward. He can play either center or wing, so versatility is a plus there. But obviously, they were probably looking for a little bit bigger splash, but the names were simply not available. And so they got the best player they could to fit the position and the need that they had. The defense is pretty set. The goaltending is set. They did make a trade in the week, so they've got a clear number one now in Lukas Dostal. They've got great young players coming up. And the biggest move was back in April when they fired Greg Cronin and hired Coach Quenneville. So that's going to be hopefully a big upgrade for every player to make them look faster, smarter, stronger, and better just by having competent coaching. And they've added a couple of great experienced assistant coaches as well. The coaching staff is as good as it's ever been, and I think is the best in the entire NHL right now. So that problem is solved. Now it's up to the players to deliver on their potential, and the moves that they made earlier in this summer, getting Chris Kreider, adding him at wing, now Mikael Granlund, adding 2 top 6 wingers was just what the doctor ordered.
And there's not a lot left out there in free agency, but of course, trades are always a possibility. I know the Ducks are at least rumored to be possibly involved in the Jason Robertson sweepstakes, if in fact he is moved. Have you heard about that? And do you think that's a possibility?
Yes and yes. I think that's a rampant. I think every team's interested, obviously, even the Stars, in having Jason Robertson on their roster. This is a guy that was 4th in the Hart Trophy voting back in 2022-23. He had a 109-point season. The guy is he's gotten Selke votes as well, finished as high as 14th in the Selke voting. So this is a player that can score 40-plus goals, can get you 100-plus points, is only 25 years old. And yes, his contract expires after this season, but he's an RFA next summer. So the teams that gets him, even if it's Dallas or whoever, will control his rights after this season. So he's from Arcadia originally, which is here in Southern California. He is half Asian, so there's a large Asian community here in Southern California that he would obviously fit in well with. I think it fits naturally as a top line winger that would go along with Cutter Gauthier and Leo Carlsson for years to come. It's a great fit for the Ducks. They have the cap space to get him. I think if he is available, the Ducks will be very aggressive in pursuing him. And It's just a matter of whether Dallas wants to trade him within the conference or take maybe a lesser offer, because I think the Ducks would offer the most. They have a great prospect system and a lot of draft picks. I think they would offer the most to get him because they need him and they have the cap space. But if they want to move him to the East or have a specific, he does not have a no trade clause. He has no say in where he goes. So I think the Ducks will be actively pursuing him, but I don't expect they'll be the only ones. And it'll be interesting to see if Dallas even moves him.
All right, let's move over to the Boston Bruins. The day before free agency, they signed a few players. One of them, Henry Yokiharu, he gets a 3-year deal, $9 million, so he'll get $3 million per season. On deadline day, one of the more notable signings was Tanner Jeannot. He gets a 5-year deal worth $17 million. He'll make $3.4 million per season. Some other names you might be familiar with: Mikey Isamont, 2 years, $2.9 million, $1.45 million per season. Sean Corrali gets a 2-year deal, $1.85 million per season, and a lot of other names that you're probably not that familiar with. There was also a trade by the Bruins. They acquired Victor Arvidsson from the Edmonton Oilers for a 5th-round pick in 2027.
Yeah, a lot of tinkering for Boston. Not a lot of big moves that are going to move the needle, I don't think. I still think Boston thinks they're closer to being back in contention than I do. I think they're pretty awful, other than David Pastrnak and some nice pieces here and there. But I just don't think they have the quality depth that they used to have. So they may make a playoff spot, but I don't see them going very deep, even if they get in. And I'm dubious that they'll even make the playoffs. Now, Tanner Jeannot seems like a good fit for them for the style of play that they used to have. But you know him from LA. He's not an offensive player. He's purely a physical player that every now and then will give you some points. And if you do, it's icing on the cake. It's unexpected. It's found money. But it's not, they didn't make a big move. They didn't bring in an impact player that's going to change their fortunes. They weren't a good team last year. They don't have Brad Marchand for the entire season now. I just don't think Boston's moving in the right direction. I think Boston is kind of where Pittsburgh was a few years ago, and they're still in denial that they're not good anymore, and they're trying desperately to cling to that contention window, and I think it's closed.
Let's move on to the Buffalo Sabres. Some signings for them. They pick up a goalie in Alex Lyon, 2 years, $3 million per total, so $1.5 million per season. You've also got Ryan McLeod getting a 4-year deal for $20 million, $5 million per season for him. Other than that, I guess there's news around Bowen Byram, and maybe you can explain this a little better than I can, but it's about filing for arbitration. He didn't, but the team did. So apparently he's now protected from an offer sheet, which I know was kind of floated out there that some teams might try to do. But that's the big player that was kind of getting the smoke around him as far as maybe a trade for Bowen Byram.
Yeah, arbitration, mostly we see it from the player's perspective, right? They file for arbitration when they have that eligibility. And I honestly don't know off the top of my head what qualifies a player to have arbitration rights or not. I know it's a certain amount of games played or experience or contract, but regardless, if you want to find that out, it's all on puckpedia.com. It's got a little hammer next to their RFA status. But usually it's the players that file for arbitration, and they do that because the qualifying offer is, I think, 105%, maybe 110% of what they earned the previous year. So they think they deserve a bigger raise. They want to go to arbitration, even though it's an awful process for the player because the team's going to tell you how worthless you are and how you shouldn't get paid any money. But what it does is it creates a deadline, right? So you've got hearings are scheduled for late July, early August. And the ruling from the arbitrator will be pretty soon thereafter. So once a team or a player files for arbitration, that puts a clock on their contract negotiations. They will be completed by mid-August at the latest with a ruling. And then the team is, I think because the team filed it, they have to accept the arbitrator's decision. So if the arbitrator says he deserves $12 million a year, they have to accept it. But if the player elects it, then the team has the option to reject the arbitrator's decision, and the player could then become a free agent. But what it does in regards to the offer sheet is that player is connected to that team. You cannot give him an offer sheet at this point. And so the Sabres control the cards here. They will either sign Bowen Byram to the deal that the arbitrator decides he is worth, or they will sign him to a deal before arbitration, or they will trade him and the new team can figure out his arbitration rights or his contract. So they control the cards. This eliminates the variable of a offer sheet coming that they would then have to decide on. So it does give them some certainty. Usually, as we saw last year, I think 14 players decided to go to arbitration, and I think 12 of them were decided before arbitration actually happened. Some as they were walking in. So it usually gets decided before arbitration actually happens, because as we've talked about many times, it's a very ugly process that usually poisons the well between the player and the team.
Moving on to the Calgary Flames, only one signing really of note. They re-signed Morgan Frost. He was an RFA, 2 years, $8.75 million. He'll make $4.38 million per season.
Yeah, Calgary's kind of in a tough spot. They didn't have a lot of space. They didn't have a lot of needs, but they also have a pretty good roster. We talked about last year, I think they had 96 points and did not make the playoffs, which is outrageous. I think it's the most we've seen a team have to not make the playoffs in quite a while. So they have a good team, and they didn't need to do a lot of tinkering. It's just a matter of adding to it. Morgan Frost is not a huge splash, but he once had a lot of potential. And you never know when somebody's going to be a right fit and everything just starts working for him. Hopefully that's the case for them, because it would be a hell of a deal at less than $5 million if he realizes his first round potential that he had back when he was taken by the Flyers.
Carolina Hurricanes were active. They re-signed restricted free agent Logan Stankoven, who they got in the trade with Dallas for Mikko Rantanen, and he gets the 8-year deal, $48 million, so he'll make $6 million per season. They also signed Nikolai Ehlers, 6 years, $51 million. He'll make $8.5 million per season. And the Hurricanes also pulled off a trade with the New York Rangers. They acquired defenseman DeAndre Miller and then signed him to an 8-year, $60 million deal. They give up defenseman Scott Morrow along with a first-round pick in 2026 and a second-round pick in 2026. So lots of movement for the Carolina Hurricanes.
Well, the Stankoven is not an addition, but it is in the sense that they did not have him for a full season last year. So essentially, yes, they took a big swing with Mikko Rantanen. It didn't work, but they made the best out of a bad situation in that one. So Eric Tulsky tried to get Mikko Rantanen signed long-term. He didn't want to be there. They basically turned Marty Necas, who is on an expiring deal this coming season with the Colorado Avalanche, into Logan Stankoven, who they now have locked up long-term. So that's pretty good business there. Then they go out and get Keandre Miller, who is a solid second-pairing defenseman to add to their already stout defense. And they've had some subtractions over the years, but still a very good defense in Carolina. And the big fish they got, and the biggest free agent, honestly, that actually made it to free agency was Nikolai Ehlers. And Nikolai took his time. He was over in Denmark. He took his time. The Great Dane wanted to make sure of where he was going, hear all the offers. Exactly what I would do if I was ever a free agent is, what's the rush to sign on July 1st? Let me hear what teams have to say. Let them make their pitch. Let them woo me a little bit. And maybe the price goes up because they missed out on all their other targets. So he's a perfect fit with Carolina, though. He's a traditional 20 goal scorer, 60 plus points on a consistent basis. Plays well in the playoffs, as we saw this past year in both rounds with the Jets. He's never played outside of Winnipeg, so it'll be interesting to see how he adjusts to new teammates and a new system. But it sounded like he wanted a place where he would have a private life away from the rink, but he was still on a Stanley Cup contender, and he would get the money he wanted and thought he was worth. He got all three in Carolina, so a very good fit. And I thought a very good offseason so far for Carolina, who, again, is a Eastern Conference finalist year after year after year, cannot get over that hump. They've added a solid defenseman. They've added a solid top six winger, and they retained the guy they got from Marty Necas. I think a very good offseason so far for the Hurricanes.
Yeah, Carolina's been looking for that kind of alpha. I don't know that Nikolai Ehlers is necessarily that guy, but not bad. A top six forward for sure, who's got talent that can help him out. And it is refreshing, I guess, for them that it was a guy who really wanted to go there, right? After being rebuffed by Mikko Rantanen, and then, trying to get some players to go there and not really having it work out. Nice for
Yeah.
them to get a good player who actually wanted to go there.
Yeah, there's a lot of teams in the NHL that, for a variety of reasons, free agents just don't go to. And pretty much all of California, Anaheim, LA, and San Jose have never signed a big name free agent. They just don't come out to Anaheim. They get here via trade. And I think Buffalo has become the team that players go to if they have no other option. For a long time, it was Arizona. And then it became Anaheim was that place for a few years when they bottomed out. And I think now it's Buffalo. So the guys that sign there, and then you get good talent in Buffalo, and they don't want to stay. So that's a problem that Buffalo has to figure out. Carolina has had problems attracting talent. They haven't had a real problem retaining talent. Once people go there, I think they like it and they're willing to stay. But getting players to go there and give them that opportunity to prove that they're a solid hockey market and a good place to play has taken some doing. So them landing the biggest fish in free agency has to feel very good. They were patient. They got what they wanted. If they didn't get Nikolai Ehlers, I think it would have been pretty disastrous for them because they had a desperate need for that position to upgrade the, as you said, just kind of collectively. He's not a star player. He's not one of the best players in the league, but he's a very good player. And he makes their top six better. He gives them more options. He makes them a better team from top to bottom. So it's collectively a better situation for Carolina now. They had a ton of cap space. They are one of the best cap managed teams in the entire NHL, and they made good use of it. And I think now sit back, see what trade offers come your way the rest of the summer, and get ready for training camp to see what you got, because that's a team with a lot of space that could make some big splashes at the trade deadline to add players like we saw Florida do for that cup run and maybe on a short-term deal rentals.
Not a lot going on with the Chicago Blackhawks. Their only move was Sam Lafferty in a trade from Buffalo for a sixth-round pick in 2026. So just not a lot of activity with the Blackhawks.
Oh, I mean, what's there to improve? What we saw last year, Eddie. I mean, it was such a fantastic team. No, Chicago's in a bad spot right now, and we see this across the league in all sports, that when you do the rebuild, when you blow it up and you take it down to the foundation, and you get good draft picks, that's true, but it's easy to tear down. It's tough to build back up, and it's very tough to start making real progress once you have enough quality young players and prospects to start adding quality NHL talent. And Chicago's in that spot right now. What player with options would want to go to Chicago? They're not a very good team. Yeah, they've got some very good young talent, but that's usually not what free agents are looking to do. And I bet they're on most teams or most players' no trade list. I don't want to go to the Blackhawks because that team's not any good. So it's a tough spot for them to add talent. They have to be patient. They have to hope that their homegrown talent takes big steps, and then they can start attracting players that want to play with proven homegrown talent.
Colorado Avalanche, of course, they did re-sign Brock Nelson earlier, but they did have a move of a name of note as they signed veteran defenseman Brent Burns, who was a UFA with Carolina, a 1 year, $1 million deal with incentives.
I mean, I think if Brent Burns in Colorado is a great fit, because if he goes on a hike, people are going to think they've seen Sasquatch. That dude is one hairy individual, and I hope he lets the beard grow and the hair grow, because he's got a great look for the Rocky Mountains. It's an interesting move. You know, you hear Brent Burns and you think, oh, that's a good move. He's a good offensive defenseman, can still play solid defense, but he's 40 years old. I don't know how many quality minutes he has on a nightly basis. I don't know how effective he's going to be on a back-to-back situation. It's an interesting move. And if you're a team like Colorado and you think we have the playoffs, we have a playoff spot probably in our future, and we'd like to make a deep run, is Brent Burns a guy you can count on for 100 plus games? I don't know. So I think we may see a little bit of load management for Brent Burns, but the big move was Brock Nelson. Locking up what they hope is finally getting that second line center position secured, having somebody that can anchor that second line and give them quality minutes, make them a deeper team, make them tougher to defend. That is the big addition. So if they get a full season out of Brock Nelson and he is what they hope he is going to be, then I think it's going to be a successful offseason ultimately for them.
Columbus Blue Jackets re-signed Dante Fabro, defenseman, 4 years, $16.5 million. He'll make $4.13 million per season. They re-signed Ivan Provorov, 7 years, $59.5 million. He'll make $8.5 million per season. And they also signed Isaac Lundestrom, 2 years, 2.6, $1.3 million per year. And also Dmitry Voronkov gets a 2-year deal, $8.5 million, $4.17 million per season.
Yeah, I can tell you from firsthand experience, Lundestrom ain't any great shakes. Good for him to get a 2-year contract in the NHL. But I'm happy to see Columbus retaining talent and that players want to stay there and stay there long term. Now, I know they probably overpaid to get them to stay there, but so be it. I mean, Columbus is one of those teams that, for the most part, free agents have not said, that's where I want to play. We obviously saw Johnny Gaudreau go there. Sean Monahan went there. But for the most part, they've had trouble attracting talent via free agency. Now they can do it via trade, and they have done that over the years. But they're another team that is not bad. They had a very surprising season last year. I don't know if that was fool's gold or if they are actually a solid team. I hope Sean Monahan can stay healthy for the full season because he was great. And when he was out, they really missed him. But they're not adding a lot of talent. That would be another team that I would expect to be very active if Jason Robertson is available, and because that's a perfect fit for them as well. And if he is, that might be a team that Dallas might say, yes, let's trade him to the Eastern Conference and let him be their problem. We only see him twice a year. And if we see him in the Stanley Cup final, great, because we're in the Stanley Cup final.
Speaking of the Dallas Stars, they were, of course, very active, re-signing some players like Wyatt Johnston and Matt Duchene. They also were able to sign Radek Faksa, 3 years, $6 million. He'll make $2 million a year. Other than that, we told you they had retained Jamie Benn last week, 1 year, $1 million. So not a lot of movement for the Stars around the free agent signing period, but they were active earlier.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see if they. So you may be asking, why would they want to trade Jason Robertson? I don't think they want to. I think he's unsigned after this year, this coming season. And they know, because they've talked to him and his agent, what he's looking to get on his next deal. And that may not fit with their plans and their budget. I don't think they expected to have Mikko Rantanen, but they got him and they were able to sign him long-term. So that changes the math for what cap space they have available. Because when you look at Dallas and you say, okay, we've got Mikko Rantanen, we still have Tyler Seguin, we've got Rupe Hintz, we got Miro Heiskanen, we got Thomas Harley, we got Jake Ottinger. There's only so many big contracts you can write. And if you want to keep Mikko Rantanen or Jason Robertson, it's probably going to cost you $10 million a year or more. And they may not have that in the budget. So why trade him now is because he has the most value. The team that's getting him gets a full season of him on this deal and then has him as an RFA. So while they have not made a lot of additions, I wonder if they do trade Jason Robertson, would they then be active in the trade market to then replace him? Would they look to a Marty Necas if he's available in Colorado? For a similar reason, Colorado may not be able to retain him and may be looking like they did with Mikko Rantanen to get ahead of the losses there and get good return for him. So there's some moving pieces here. The summer is not done. The offseason is not done. As you said, most of the big name free agents, the players of impact, are gone, but trades are going to happen. And the maddening thing as a NHL fan is you want that immediate satisfaction, immediate gratification. It could happen today. It could happen a week from now. It could happen 2 months from now. So it's you just got to hope. And then all of a sudden there's going to be a big move and we'll see what happens. But Dallas is in an interesting spot because they're obviously, like Carolina, a very good team that makes the conference finals on a regular basis. But unlike Carolina, they have not added anything to their roster. They've retained, but they have not added anything beyond a full season of Mikko Rantanen. But they had him in the playoffs and it still wasn't enough.
Not a lot for the Detroit Red Wings. They signed a couple of names that you know. James Van Riemsdyk gets a 1-year deal worth $1 million. Mason Appleton gets a 2-year deal, $5.8 million, $2.9 million per season. They also made a trade shipping out Vladimir Tarasenko for future considerations to the Minnesota Wild.
They also made a trade in getting John Gibson So they've
We
got
talked
a
about
good
that one
goalie.
last week, though. We talked about that one
Did
last
we?
week. Yep.
All right. But yeah, it's been this transition from rebuild into contender for Detroit has been very sticky. They have not been able to get a big player to come to town, and they've gotten a few veterans like Patrick Kane and Vladimir Tarasenko. Haven't gotten a lot of meat on the bone for either one of those guys, and ultimately they're still in the same spot they were 5 years ago, which is building and hoping that this year is the year that they make the playoffs. Now we will see, but they are another team with a lot of cap space, a lot of needs. They're a team that I think would be very interested in Jason Robertson if he becomes available. So the bidding for Robertson should be robust if he is on the market. Jim Nill will have a lot of offers to consider and play off of each other. But for Detroit, not a lot of reason to think that next year is going to be dramatically different than this past season. You have to hope that the young players take steps forward, and that's about it. They don't even have really new coaching or anything to make a big splash about.
Edmonton Oilers signed forward Andrew Mangiapane, 2 years, $7.2 million. He'll make $3.6 million per season. But their big move was re-signing restricted free agent defenseman Evan Bouchard, 4 years, $42 million, $10.5 million per season.
Yeah, big number for Evan Bouchard, and I think that impacted Ivan Provorov and all the other defensemen that are going to be signed. Condre Miller. It's more about replacing what they lost to me for Edmonton. So a couple years ago, they made the Cup final. They lost players, and you think, how's that going to impact them? We talked about the offer sheets that St. Louis signed for Holloway and Broberg. So they lost those guys, and they had to have players step up. And this year, they've lost Connor Brown, Corey Perry. It's not huge losses, but those are positive players that played they played well for them in depth positions. So have they replaced them with Andrew Mangiapane? I guess in on paper they have, but we have to see how it looks on the ice. They still have obviously Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, now Evan Bouchard locked up. They've got some very big pieces locked up, but it hasn't been enough to beat Florida the past 2 years. Florida seems to be as good as ever. They were able to do, and I'm sure we're going to talk about them next. But it's just Edmonton's in a maddening spot where they know they're that close to being a Stanley Cup champion, and yet they don't have the cap space or flexibility to make moves to get impact players. I think they're going to have to wait for the trade deadline to try and add somebody to get them over the hump.
Yeah, we talked about Evander Kane also gone last week.
Yeah, I mean, that's 3. I know they didn't have him in the regular season, but they did in the playoffs, and he made a difference for him. So when you've lost Evander Kane, Connor Brown, Corey Perry, that's 3 good players. If you watched them in the playoffs, those names came up a lot, and they're all gone. And I don't think the players they added are going to be as good a fit. Maybe they will, but that's the risk that you take when you lose those pieces.
You mentioned the Florida Panthers. They did what a lot of people did not think they would be able to do. We told you last week they signed Sam Bennett to the 8-year deal worth $8 million per season. They also re-signed Aaron Ekblad, the UFA defenseman, 8 years, $48.8 million, $6.1 million per season. And they signed Brad Marchand 6 years, $31.5 million, $5.25 million per season.
I mean, it's cap circumvention. Let's be honest. What they did with Brad Marchand, a 6-year
not gonna
deal
play
for a
6 years,
37-year-old.
Yeah,
I mean, remember when they threw out the contract for Ilya Kovalchuk because it was 15 years, right? They said that's cap circumvention. You're just doing that to get the cap number down. Well, what the hell is this? There's no chance he plays till he's 43. So it's like, hell, make it an 8-year deal. I mean, why not? I mean, let's really get a low cap number. So that's cap circumvention. The league's letting them get away with it because the owners are the ones that run the league anyway, and they all want to be able to do it. The Aaron Ekblad blew my mind because that guy was worth a lot more in free agency. He took a huge discount. You saw what Evan Bouchard got. You saw what Ivan Provorov got. He's better than both of those guys, in my opinion, as far as a guy that has won Stanley Cups. Now, Bouchard is younger, and he has a hell of a shot, and he's probably got better hockey ahead of him. But if you're paying a guy, look, if Aaron Ekblad made it to free agency and people called him up and said, here's your offer, it's going to be a hell of a lot more than $6.1 million per year. So he took less money than he was worth to stay in Florida and to make it work for them to be able to keep Bennett and Marchand. So good on him for being a team player, I guess. That doesn't help players in arbitration, because if you go into arbitration, the team can say, well, if he compares to Aaron Ekblad, he's only worth 6.1 million. So why would I pay you 8 million? So it's tough there. But I didn't like that Marchand deal as a league. I thought that's a BS move. There's no way that you should be able to sign a 37-year-old to a 6-year deal. That's just stupid. So I didn't like that one. But for them, literally no additions to my knowledge, right? They haven't added anybody because they basically are.
I mean, Jeff Petrie.
Okay. Yeah. A piece there, but I think they're going to have to make some moves before the season starts. They're one of those teams that's over the cap. In fact, I'm going to look at it real quick because there's a few teams. Yeah, they are currently 2.95 million over the cap. The Stars, by the way, are 1.79 million over the cap. So they're going to have to make some moves, and Evan Rodriguez might be the guy that gets moved because he's right at that number to get them under the cap, making just over $3 million a year. But they're basically bringing back the 2-time Stanley Cup champion roster. And why wouldn't you? It was the best in the NHL last year. No reason to think that it's not going to be great again next year. You know they play well together. You know they play well under Paul Maurice. They're all in their prime. They're all good contributors. And this is a team that understands the assignment. They don't care about the regular season. They don't care about October through March. They care about April and beyond, and just play well enough to make the playoffs, and then they can control their own fate. So guys are going to be injured to start the season. They're going to get off to a slow start. Everybody's going to be, what's wrong with the Panthers? Nothing. When the playoffs start, they're the team to beat again.
My LA Kings were busy. They re-signed Andrei Kuzmenko, 1 year, $4.3 million. They signed Corey Perry, 1 year, $2 million plus incentives. They signed Joel Armia, 2 years, $5 million. They signed Cody Ceci, 4 years, $18 million, $4.5 million per season. They signed Matt Dumoulin, 3 years, $12 million, $4 million per season. And for a backup goalie, they signed Anton Forsberg, 4 years, $4.5 million, $2.25 million per season.
Brian Dumoulin, by the way, you said Matt. You tell me what you think. You're the Kings fan. I don't. I'm not going to lecture you. The big loss was obviously Gavrikov. And so when you lose your best defenseman, you replace him not dollar for dollar, but 2 guys to replace those minutes. And you tell me what you think of the Kings offseason so far.
Well, I was surprised, and we'll talk more about it when we get to the Rangers, what Vladislav Gavrikov signed for. But certainly losing your top defenseman is never a good thing. And then replacing him with a couple of guys, older guys, specifically, I think it's Brian Dumoulin. I don't think it's going to be Joel Edmondson, but we'll see. That's obviously a downgrade. The Cody Ceci contract, I can't understand at all. I don't know why you would pay a guy that's going to be, I got to believe, on your third pairing, $4.5 million per season, and for 4 years. I don't understand that. I like the Kuzmenko re-signing. He was great for him. We'll see if he can do it for a full season, but he was really good for him in a short amount of time. They upgraded their fourth line with Corey Perry and Joel Armia, who are veteran guys. They got bigger, they got stronger, they got older. Maybe that's, if you can spin it, they're more experienced now in the playoffs, with guys that have been there before. You can also say they're older and slower. So I understand what they're doing. Whether it works or not, I don't know. I'm a little skeptical. I think they can. I do think, losing Gavrikov is big, but they are a good team, defensive, team. It's about their team defense. I think losing your top defenseman, while it hurts, I don't know that it hurts a team like them as much as it might another team. I think they can absorb it, but is this going to be part of the answer, the solution to get them out of the first round of the playoffs, making your fourth line better, making, your third pairing more veteran? I don't know. I don't know if that's going to be the answer or not. They think it's part of the solution. We'll see.
Well, the losses, though, when you offset it, so refresh me, was it Spence that they traded?
Yes, Jordan Spence to Buffalo.
So you lose Jordan Spence and Vladislav Gavrikov, your top defenseman, and your guys at 6'7", right? The guy that's floating in and out of the lineup kind of on a regular basis. and you replace those two with Brian Dumoulin and Cody Ceci. You're worse at defense, just on paper, with those two than you were last year because of Gavrikov's minutes that he could eat. Neither of those guys are going to be able to play that number of minutes. That, they're not top pairing guys. So, but as you said, you've upgraded the fourth line, but you did lose Tanner Jeannot. But I think this is what Ken Holland does. Ken Holland is not here to for a long time and to go the long run. My dad's favorite football coach, God, I can't remember his name now, but he never had a losing season. He was the guy that ended up coaching George Allen. And George Allen hated rookies. He always traded rookies and draft picks. He wanted guys that were veterans and he knew what he was getting. And that's what Ken Holland feels like. Ken Holland has no room for anybody that is entering their prime. He wants guys that he knows what they are and they know their job and they come here to do a specific job. So he did this in Edmonton. He added veteran players, including Corey Perry, and he's doing it here. And that's what I'm sure they talked about when they hired him as the GM was, what's your plan? And his plan was, we need to be bigger. We need to be more experienced. We need veterans that know how to win in the playoffs. Now, did he get that? We'll see in April. The trick for the Kings, though, is going to be, do they have the depth to absorb a loss? If there's an injury on defense, like we saw with Drew Doughty, who eats the minutes? Who's your top pairing defense at this point? If there's a loss at forward, do you have enough scoring depth now? You still have Fiala, you still have Kempe, you still have Kopitar, but Kopitar's on, as you said, probably his last season. Not sure how many goals he has left. Kuzmenko is a good retention, but can he keep that magic for an entire season? That's the question. So we will see. I'm dubious as well, but I didn't like the Warren Fogle and Joel Edmondson signing last year, and they worked out pretty well. So let's see how it looks on the ice in October. And I love Corey Perry. I will always love Corey Perry. I don't mind him being on that Kings one bit. He's been gone from the Ducks for a long time now. This doesn't feel like betrayal. It won't be weird to see him on there because I've seen him in a lot of different jerseys by now. But I know you hate him. So I'm curious how you will react as he is helping you instead of hurting you from now on.
Well, hopefully he is. I was trying to think if there ever has been a situation like this before. And I was trying to think with my Steelers, if they had ever gotten somebody from another team that I really hated, and nobody was coming to mind. I don't know. It's going to be very weird to see him in that uniform. I just can't bring myself to cheer for him, but if he helps, and he does some positive things, I'm not going to be unhappy about it, but I just can't bring myself to cheer for him. I'll just be indifferent, I guess.
You'll cheer
when he does something. No, I won't.
Trust me, you will.
No, I won't.
Yes, you will.
Why would I lie about it? Why would I lie about
it? So when he scores a goal to win a game, you're not going to cheer. You're not going to be happy that he scored.
I'll cheer for the goal, but I'm not going to cheer for him.
Well, that's semantics at that point. He's going to help you win games. That's what he does. That's why he's still being.
And I get the signing. I totally understand the signing. I understand why they got him, and it makes sense. So the signing at face value for the role he plays and what they signed him for, sure, I completely understand. But I don't like him. I've never liked him. I just can't bring myself to being excited about him being on my team. So hopefully he does well. Does what he's supposed to do, but it's not something I'm excited about.
I mean, look, we had I hated Jeff Friesen when he was on the Ducks, and
but that's not a good comparison. There's got to be somebody else, right?
Why?
Because this is a guy who was a cornerstone player for a hated rival, not just some dude that didn't want to play on your team.
Well,
that's a pretty different situation.
Okay, but my point is, I hated him when he was on the team. And if he scored a goal or if he did something well, I did have that same reaction of, I'm happy, but I wish it was anybody else.
Right.
So I get that.
Yeah.
But I think you're going to like what you see from Corey Perry. Every other team has.
Okay. Minnesota Wild. Not a lot going on.
I
with
know
them.
what to get you for Christmas, by the way. Corey Perry Kings jersey. It's easy.
Somebody gave me a jersey once, and I threw it right in the trash. So that might go there
That
as
was a
well.
basketball jersey.
It was, but no interest in that. We mentioned the Minnesota Wild. They did pick up Vladimir Tarasenko in a trade from the Red Wings. Other than that, not much as far as a signing in free agency. I did chuckle a bit, and we might hear about him later, that they did sign Cal Peterson, the goaltender, to a one-year deal worth $775,000 to be, the AHL guy, I guess. But shocking that anyone even would consider him at this point. But a former
Cal
Kings,
Peterson and his dog Spot.
yeah, a former big mistake for the LA Kings a few years ago.
Yeah, Minnesota does not have a ton of cap space. It's curious. They have the guy kind of like Jason Robertson. They have Marco Rossi that they may be trading this summer. And it's just not a fit there. He wants more minutes. They don't want to give him more minutes. They've got him playing on the fourth line in the playoffs, if at all. So it's a weird situation. He's got value. And so that'll be an interesting thing if they move him, how those dominoes fall. At some point, trades are going to start happening. And I'm sure more players are available than we know of, than are being rumored right now. So it'll be interesting to see what they do eventually. But Vladimir Tarasenko has very little left in the tank. I mean, that's an empty gas can on its way back to the station. I certainly wouldn't want him on the Ducks. Let's put it that way. I would have said, that's a great signing 5 years ago, but not today. And Detroit won't miss him. And I think I don't think Minnesota is going to be thrilled with what they get out of it.
Not much from Montreal this week. They had the Noah Dobson signing was their big move in the offseason last week. They did make a trade, and I only mentioned it because of the controversy surrounding the player, but Logan Mailloux was traded to the St. Louis Blues for Luc Bolduc. You might remember Logan Mailloux was a very controversial pick by Mark Bergevin, who was involved in the abuse of a special needs person. So yeah, he's on the move. I don't know that he ever played a game for the Canadians.
No, I don't believe so.
Yeah.
I don't think he's made his NHL debut. And I'm curious what, you talk about, you're upset that they got Corey Perry. Imagine if the Kings traded for Logan Mailloux. Like, what are we doing? Like, I get that people deserve second chances, but not everyone. Some people are just F you, man. And I get that he was young and we all were jerks when we were younger and we did things that we regret and we were mean to people. But there's a special place in hell for taking advantage or belittling or bullying a special needs person. And if there is, he's already got his room reserved. So I would never want that guy on my team. And just no. So I'm not sure why St. Louis wanted it, but I'm sure Montreal's happy to have him off their books.
Let's see who we got up here next. We have the Nashville
Well, you went
Predators.
through Montreal. I was going to say Nashville sounds like that. And that's a team that last year was making big moves. This year, not so much.
No, Nick Perbix, 2 years, $5.5 million, $2.75 million per season. And did they make any trades? I don't think so. We talked about the trade last week, Nicholas Hague for Jeremy Lauzon and Colton Sisson. So much quieter offseason or a trade deadline the free agency signing period for the Nashville Predators this year.
And that's probably a good thing. I mean, you can't be going all in every summer, but I think the best thing Nashville can hope for is that with a year under their belts, and Jonathan Marchessault has been rumored to be on the trade block. I'm not buying that. He's got a no trade clause I think he's got a 10-team no trade clause that he could be traded to. And I'm sure they've maneuvered that to be the 10 teams with the least amount of cap space so that they can't fit him under the cap, even if they wanted him. But he went there for a reason. Stamkos went there for a reason. And a year later, they're running it back with the same coaching staff, with the same systems, with the same roster. So they're going to hope that the gamble they took last year pays off this year and gets them back into playoff contention. it is a gamble, but that's really all you can do when you spent as wildly as they did a year ago.
New Jersey Devils having some signings. Let me see. I just lost my page here. I apologize for that. They re-signed Jake Allen, the goaltender. He got a 5-year deal, $9 million, $1.8 million per season. They signed Connor Brown, who you mentioned earlier, 4 years, $12 million for him. He gets $3 million a year. They signed Evgeny Dodonov, 1 year, $1 million. Cody Glass, 2 years, $5 million, $2.5 million per season.
A lot of tinkering there. The Jake Allen was surprising because he was going to be the biggest name goalie in the free agent market, and they re-signed him. So once he left, that meant John Gibson was pretty much the only option available if you wanted to upgrade your starting goalie, and the Red Wings did that via trade. So Jake Allen is an interesting move, though, because 5 years, I know it's not a lot of money, but it takes up a roster spot. He's not, you can upgrade your other goalie spot, but he's going to be there for the next 5 years. And they're obviously hoping that the return of Jack Hughes makes a big difference and gets them, if he's healthy in the playoffs, gives them a chance to advance. Because when he got injured, we saw the wind go out of their sails. They did not play well down the stretch. And they put up a better fight than I thought in the playoffs, but were one and done as we expected. So they have to hope that Jack Hughes, and they have a good team around him. They have a good team that they've built there that's going to be a solid playoff team. But if he's healthy in the playoffs, that changes everything for him.
New York Islanders making some additions. The day before free agency, they signed Alexander Romanov, 8 years, $50 million, $6.25 million per season. They re-signed Anthony DeAngelo, 1 year, $1.75 million. They signed goalie David Riddick, 1 year, $1 million. Jonathan Drouin, 2 years, $8 million. He'll make $4 million per year. Ethan Bear gets a 1-year deal worth under $1 million. So some names you're probably familiar with there, signed by the Islanders. Simon Holmstrom, 2 years, $7.25 million, $3.63 million per season.
I've really liked what Matthew Darche has done so far in Long Island. He's done a fantastic job, I think, of getting the prospect pool restocked with some real quality. He got a great return for Noah Dobson, although I still don't understand the impetus to lose Noah Dobson, but he got great return for him. He's probably going to have the number 1 pick playing this year, so he's got a splashy rookie to add, maybe the only rookie from this year from this year's draft that will be in the NHL. And he's made a lot of quality depth signings on short-term deals. He's not giving any lucrative money or term to these guys, and these are bridge contracts to keep the team competitive until all these young players they've drafted develop and are ready to contribute at the NHL. So 2, 3, 4-year deals, very smart, all capable NHL players, no star players, but quality depth. And he's just going to have a good team this coming season, not looking to win the cup, but be in playoff contention, play some solid hockey, and then hope for the best. If things go your way, who knows what happens, but I've really liked the move that they've made so far for the Islanders.
For the New York Rangers, they re-signed restricted free agent Will Cooley, 2 years, $7.8 million, $3.9 million per season. They signed Tyler Radich, 2 years, $3 million. But the big signing, defenseman Vladislav Gavrikov, 7 years, $49 million, $7 million per season.
Well, you said you would have some comments on that when we got to the Rangers, and I look at it as kind of like your Kings as well. They've made additions, but they've also lost players. So when you lose Chris Kreider and you lose Keandre Miller, and then you add Vladislav Gavrikov and you add smaller pieces here and there, are you collectively better than you were last year? I don't know. And we won't know until we see their team take the ice in October. So they are gambling that they are. They're gambling that this past year was an aberration. 2 years ago, they won the President's Trophy. Last year, they didn't even make the playoffs. They get a full season out of JT Miller. They hopefully get a bounce back season from a lot of their players that had down years, like Mika Zibanejad. But getting Vladislav Gavrikov as the pairing to go with Adam Fox gives them a really good top pairing. Former Norris Trophy winner in Fox. Gavrikov can eat minutes on that left side. So that's a good top pairing. But is the depth there on defense, and do they have enough depth scoring to get back to where they want to be, which is being a cup contender?
Yeah, I guess Vladislav Gavrikov really wanted to play for the Rangers. Didn't, I hadn't heard anything about that. When he had talked to the media about, when the season was going to be over, he didn't say, oh, I'm definitely going to sign with the Kings, but he didn't really, they didn't give any indication that he wasn't happy here or he wanted to go somewhere else. And after the season ended, he changed agents. Obviously, the Kings have a different GM than, and there was talk during the season about re-signing Gavrikov, and it seemed like everything was positive. So I don't know if something changed, if the reports were just not accurate or what. But now that we've heard, we see what the term is, and we hear, that apparently he really, really wanted to go to New York. So that was very surprising. I certainly would have been more than happy for the LA Kings to pay him $7 million per season. I thought he was going to get, $9 million a year, to be honest with you.
Yeah, a little bit closer to the Provorov and Bouchard money. I mean, when you're a free agent, you expect to be in a bidding war, right? You expect who's the highest bidder. But clearly he didn't want just the most money. He wanted to go to a specific market. And for whatever reason, you mentioned the deal that they allegedly had. Did you ever know what the terms were? Was there any, as far as years or term or finances with him and Rob Blake? And do you think that was just a Rob Blake thing? And Ken Holland was like, no, we don't want to pay him. I can do this. I can replace those minutes with Cody Ceci and Brian Dumoulin.
Ken Holland said he upped the offer that Rob Blake gave to Gavrikov twice. He didn't say numbers, but he said that he twice went to him with increased offers or something along those lines. So I have no doubt that the Kings would have been more than happy to pay him the $7 million. I don't know about the years. I don't know if they wanted to give him the 7 or 8 years. Maybe they didn't. But like I said, from all indications, it seemed like for whatever reason, he really wanted to go to New York. And so he took less money to go there. So it was surprising when I saw it was 7 times 7. I'm like, well, why the hell didn't the Kings just give him that? But apparently,
yeah, you could have offered him that. The guy has to sign it.
Yeah.
And that's, we hear a lot of fans around the league, and you see them on social media and on talk radio, and they write to us, why didn't my GM sign XYZ? But the player has to sign the deal. It's not a draft. And so you may have offered the most money. Somebody may have offered Nikolai Ehlers 7 years and $70 million. He wanted to go to Carolina. So
didn't Mikko Rantanen get more money offered somewhere else, but he wanted to go to Dallas? I believe.
I don't know. Yeah. But my point is the player has to want to go there. So I'm positive, because I know that they've said it. The Ducks offered more money to Stamkos and Marchessault than the Predators did, and they wanted to go to Nashville. Okay, nothing you can do in that situation. So if Gavrikov had his mind made up, I want to go to the Rangers. Now, where it gets interesting is, how did he know the Rangers were interested in signing him?
Yep.
And that's where it's tampering, and if you can prove it, because you may want to go play in New York, but the Rangers be like, no, we're good. We're going to re-sign Keandre Miller, and we don't have money or a spot for you. Well, so he was turning down offers from the Kings because he knew an offer was coming from the Rangers. How did he know that? And how is that not tampering? And if it is tampering, how do you prove it? That's the problem that NHL has, but
all sports really.
Yeah, it's just it's a very tricky situation because every team does it. As we've talked about, you can have a hypothetical conversation between a GM and an agent about if a player that was, say 29 years old and was a left shot defenseman became available, we'd sure have a lot of money available for that player. Well, obviously they know what they're doing. But it is interesting that all these deals get done on July 1st. He knew there was an offer waiting for him from the Rangers. We all did. I mean, it wasn't a well-kept secret that the Rangers were going to pursue Vladislav Gavrikov. So how that's not tampering, I'm not sure. And that gets us to a team that we're going to talk about at the end of the first period here of they found a way around the tampering rules because I think they were going to get called on it.
Not much to speak of for the Ottawa Senators. Hayden Hodgson, 1 year, less than $1 million.
Cody's little brother.
Wyatt Bonggiovanni, I mean, you know,
That's
Arthur.
the marijuana version of Andrew Mangiapane.
Arthur Kaliyev, I know him just because he was a former King, but
Yeah,
there's not a lot going on there for Ottawa. I know they re-signed Claude Giroux and made
yeah.
their moves earlier, but nothing really to speak of for the Ottawa Senators.
No, and they made the playoffs last season, so you're happy for them in that. But it's you got to build on what you have, and they're hoping that their young talent can take another step forward, be more consistent now that they have a winning culture, make it consistent, become an annual playoff team, and again potentially add some pieces at the trade deadline to strengthen your playoff run if you're in that position.
Philadelphia Flyers, Christian Dvorak, 1 year, $5.4 million. Dan Vladar, 2 years, $6.7 million. We already talked about, the Trevor Zegras trade last time.
Yeah.
But nothing really of note as far as signings for the Flyers.
No, they've got a good young team that they're building. I've liked what Daniel Briere has done there, and I think they want to see what they have with the new coaching staff, with the tinkering that they've done, with their young players taking another year of progression in their development. I think they'd like to see what they have. I don't think they're chasing a cup right now. If they can make the playoffs, great. Maybe they add during the season, but little pieces here and there. I was surprised Dan Vladar got the money he did, and I was very surprised by the the cost that Christian Dvorak got. I know he's a good player, good depth player, but I thought that was a very good job by his agent to get him over $5 million a year.
Nothing much of note from the Pittsburgh Penguins. Anthony Mantha gets a 1-year deal worth $2.5 million, and they traded Alex Nedeljkovic to the San Jose Sharks for a 3rd-round pick in 2028.
The pain is just beginning for Pittsburgh. That is a bad roster, man. A bad roster. Bad team, man. Bad effing team. It's old. It didn't make the playoffs the last 2 years. It's not going to make the playoffs this coming season. The pain is just beginning.
San Jose Sharks are experiencing the pain. They did sign restricted free agent William Eklund, 3 years, $16.8 million, $5.6 million per season. They signed John Klingberg to a 1-year, $4 million deal. They signed Dmitry Orlov to a 2-year deal worth $13 million, $6.5 million for him. I think were they not needing to get to the salary cap floor, or am I incorrect on that? Do you know that or not? Is that one of the
I
reasons
can look
why?
it up real quick. Well, I mean, they'll make it. They're not. The salary cap floor is 70 million. They are over that already, and they still have. Let me see if they still have some RFAs to sign. So the only team that is below the cap floor right now is the Anaheim Ducks, but they have two. They still have Mason McTavish and Lukas Dostal to sign, so they will definitely be well over that. But yeah, they've got a couple of players to sign here and there, but nobody of note. Their roster is pretty much on the floor, as we say. My team's on the floor, but they're just building at this point. I like their defensive additions. I think Klingberg is a serviceable defenseman that we've seen bounce around the league from the Ducks to Dallas to Edmonton, now to San Jose. And Dmitry Orlov will give him quality minutes. And the subtraction of Marc-Edouard Vlasic, I think collectively they're a better defensive team than they were. But again, like Chicago, like a lot of teams, they're hoping their young players continue to develop and make them become the star players that they need. We are actually going to talk about more than just two teams in the second period because I was doing the math and it would take forever. So I've got San Jose as another team that I did. If their roster was only built of players that they drafted, what would it look like this coming season? And if you're a Sharks fan, you already know this, but I'll tell the rest of you, it's awful. That is a team that can't draft for dumb, man. They would be better pulling names out of a hat. They are awful at drafting players and have been for a long time.
Seattle Kraken, they signed Ryan Lindgren, defenseman, 4 years, $18 million, $4.5 million per season. They signed goalie Matt Murray to a 1-year, $1 million deal. And I can't remember how to pronounce this guy's last name. Is it Cartier?
Cartier?
Is it Cartier? I thought it was Cartier, but it sure don't look like Cartier when you look at it.
No.
Ty Cartier, $2 million, $2.5 million, $1.25 million per season.
Yeah, a lot of little moves here. Again, they're doing it the right way, the completely opposite way that Vegas did. They actually value draft picks and development of players. The Golden Knights do not, and the Golden Knights have won a Stanley Cup and are a constant contender. So you tell me which is the right way to go about it. But Seattle is building the traditional way of little moves here and there, incremental progress, incremental growth, hoping the young players that they drafted and developed become star players for them. I think they're going to be another team that has problems getting players to come there as free agents, but we will see as the years go by. But not a lot of splashes. And before you go on to the next team, I will say for Jeff Ponder, St. Louis is actually alphabetically before San Jose and Seattle.
All right. Not sure how that
It's
works.
SAINT. It's just the ST is just an abbreviation.
Oh, please. Let's go to the St. Louis Blues. Nick Bukestad, 2 years, $3.25 million, $1.75 million per season. And Pius Suter gets a 2-year deal, $8.25 million, $4.13 million per season.
I really like the Pius Suter signing. He was a good player for Vancouver last year, a guy that can give you 15 to 25 goals, depth player, versatile player, good two-way player. I think that's a very solid addition. I was hoping the Ducks would get him. They did not, so strong addition there. But St. Louis, again, a playoff team that made a big splash at the deadline to get Cam Fowler, upgrade their defense, have him for a full season now. He worked out great for them, or well before the deadline, actually, back in December, they got him. But have him for a full season. And we'll see with Jordan Kyrou. There were rumors that he would be traded. His no trade clause has kicked in now. It was on July 1st. So I think he's got a lot more power than I was expecting him kind of refreshing up until midnight to see if they moved him before the no trade clause got kicked in. They did not. So I would expect him to be on the team to open the season. And if so, the Blues are a better team than they were last year when they made the playoffs.
Not much from the Tampa Bay Lightning. They re-signed Gage Goncalves, 2 years, $2.4 million, $1.2 million per season. Pontus Holmberg gets 2 years, $3.1 million, $1.55 million per season.
It's still a very good team, much like Edmonton. They have what they have. They are what they are. Dallas, the same thing. Not a lot of maneuverability, not a lot of cap space. And they've got a veteran team that is really loaded at certain positions, in net, on defense, at forward, top-heavy team. Not a lot of quality depth, but the talent at the top of the lineup is good enough to get them back in the playoffs. And they've got one of the best head coaches in the league as well. So get back to the playoffs, take your chances, hope for a better run. They ran into Florida last year. I mean, if they don't play the Panthers in the first round, I think they advance. And who knows where they go from there. But they played the back-to-back Stanley Cup champs in the first round, and that's a brutal draw.
The Toronto Maple Leafs sign and trade with the Vegas Golden Knights. Mitch Marner goes to Vegas, and Nicholas Waugh goes the other way. What were the details? I don't have it here, unfortunately. The details on the Marner signing. What did he get? It was 8?
Oh, let me see. Yeah, it was an 8-year deal. So let me look that up real quick. And this was done at the last minute, just before free agency
$96 million
began.
For Marner.
Yep. There you go. So 8 years, $96 million. He's going to make $12 million per. He would have made more than that if he went to free agency. There's no doubt. He would have probably been the highest paid player in the league. But he wanted to go to Vegas. Gavrikov wanted to go to the Rangers, and Marner wanted to go to Vegas. So Vegas is a town players want to go. It is the aberration on the West Coast. I think Utah, Seattle, Anaheim, San Jose, Los Angeles are all going to have a tough time attracting free agents. Vegas does not, and players want to go there. So they get the prize in free agency. Everybody was looking, where's Marner going to go? What's he going to get? What kind of a deal? Ends up being a sign and trade. So Toronto does not lose the asset for nothing. Great work by them to get that done. There was talk that Vegas was going to be accused of tampering if they did not give up something to get him. But at the same time, they had to give up something financially to create some room to get him. They are well over the cap, so we will see if they make a move. But Marner is going to play with Eichel this coming season. There's no doubt about that on that top line. And obviously, that's a great pairing on paper. It'll be interesting to see how it all works out. Marner is in a market. There's no market he could have gone to that would have had more pressure or more scrutiny than he had been playing under in Toronto. So he's got less pressure. He's on a team that's already won a cup and has proven they know how to win. But I look at Vegas, and Nicholas Waugh is gone. Alex Petrangelo's out for the entire season. That's a team that is not good on defense. And teams, when you play Vegas this year, I think you need to attack that defense, and I'm sure they will, and force the second and third pairing are not good. So make them be as, God forbid they have any injuries. They have very little depth, and they have no money to go and address that depth. So we'll see what moves if they make any trades this summer to create some space or to address that. But they are a very top-heavy team. I think they're the Western Conference version of Tampa Bay. They're good if everyone's healthy and their top guys all come through. But if they don't, I think they're screwed because they do not have the quality depth that they used to have. And it's because they're giving out too many big contracts. And Jack Eichel is a UFA after next season. So they'll probably re-sign him at some point this year. And that's going to be a big number. And that's going to be even less depth they will have. And at some point, Mark Stone is going to be on permanent injured reserve and called retirement. So it'll be interesting to see how Vegas handles it. But this feels like we're all in for this season because they always are. And we'll worry about the future after this season. But there's no doubt getting the big player, and Toronto is who we're talking about here. Toronto got Nicholas Waugh, which is, I think, a good addition to their defense and is a good return for a guy that was going to walk the next day anyway. I don't think they needed Mitch Marner to win. They have enough talent. They retained John Tavares, so they're still too deep at center. They still have Austin Matthews. They still have William Nylander. That's a good forward core that they have. And they got Matthew Nyes locked up as well. So I think they still have plenty of offensive potential. They don't need Mitch Marner. He was a luxury that they could afford to lose and still be a very good team. Now we'll see if the pressure, though, is up on Nylander and Matthews because Marner's not there. I think Marner was, for whatever reason, kind of the whipping boy when the team struggled in the playoffs. He was the one everybody liked to blame first. And we will see how that goes now that there is more pressure on Matthews and Nylander for a full season, and there's less of a shield between them and the criticism. But I still think Toronto is in just as good a position to go deep in the playoffs and chase a Stanley Cup as they were with Marner, believe it or not. I think he was just a luxury. And when you're that deep at forward, the problem they had was not scoring goals. It was keeping goals out of their net and scoring in the playoffs. And they need to find that. Marner was not going to be that person. So keeping him wasn't going to help them achieve their goals. So I don't think they'll miss him as much as people may think.
And they also added in a trade with the Utah Mammoth forward Matias Maccelli for a conditional third-round pick in 2023.
Yeah, depth, a little bit more scoring from your middle six. That's exactly what teams that go deep need. Look at who's won the Cup the last 2 years, how deep that team is in Florida. And the team that has played them each year got great contributions from their bottom six. So build your depth. You've got the elite scorers. Edmonton proved you need 2 elite scorers, maybe 3. You still have that. You've got enough in Toronto to make a cup run.
As for the Utah Mammoth, they signed Brandon Tanev, 3 years, $7.5 million, $2.5 million per season. Nate Schmidt gets a 3-year deal worth $10.5 million, $3.5 million per season, gets a Stanley Cup, and then goes to Utah. And Vitek Vanacek, a 1-year, $1.5 million deal.
Well, I like the defensive additions. They lost, obviously, some defense in the trade that they did to earlier this offseason. You'll have to remind me who they got in that deal. But the Maccelli deal. They traded out somebody else, defenseman. It was the Buffalo deal that they made. That's right. They got JJ Peterka. So they added offense, they shedded some defense, and they replaced that. And I think they did a good job with it. So collectively, when you add Peterka and you have Schmidt and Tanev, but you remove the defenseman that they lost, whose name I can't remember right now, Kesselring, I think they're better than they were last year. And they were a good team on the rise. They've got good young talent. if they continue to build around their core guys, I think the stability of the franchise is still helping that team, not having to worry about where are we going to play or playing in a college rank. I think things are the better days are still ahead for Utah.
Vancouver Canucks, they re-signed goalie Thatcher Demko 3 years, 25.5 million, 8.5 million per season. They re-signed Connor Garland, 6 years, $36 million, $6 million per season. And this was the one I think I was surprised most. Brock Besser goes back to Vancouver, 7 years, 50.75 million, 7.25 million per season. It seemed like for all the world that they had moved on from him and he had moved on from them. I really was shocked that he went back there.
And why not do it a day earlier so you can get an 8-year deal? He signed on July 1st, so he couldn't sign an 8-year deal anymore because he was a UFA. He's no longer there. It's not a re-signing at that point. It's a new signing. So very confusing. I think when it came right down to it, he was like, I don't want to leave. I don't want to move. I'm happy here. And if that offer you gave me is still good, I'll take it. It's interesting that Vancouver's basically running it back. It was not a good year last year. And they're like, man, let's lock up everybody we got because we got to keep this band together. And I know that they lost JT Miller and they had a very tumultuous locker room last year, but I don't know about bringing it all back. I think an addition, a fresh start somewhere would have been good. But Brock Besser, if you don't got a good feeling, Mitch Marner's gone. He's not available. If you don't got a good feeling on Nikolai Ehlers, that's the best forward available at that point. So him being re-signed ultimately is a good thing. But I think you got to bring in some new blood because what you had last year wasn't good enough. And bringing it all back, I don't see. I guess they're doing the Rangers thing of 2 years ago, we were a great team. Last year was crap. Let's hope we bring it all back and we get back to what we were 2 years ago.
For Vegas, we already talked about Mitch Marner, so let's move on to the Washington Capitals.
Did Vegas have any other additions?
No.
Okay.
Not of note. Washington Capitals re-signed restricted free agent Martin Ferivari, 7 years, $42 million, $6 million per season. They also signed Anthony Beauvillier, who was a deadline pickup for him. He was a UFA 2 years, $5.5 million, $2.75 million per season.
Ferivari is a good defenseman, physical player, good second pairing guy, eats up minutes and gives you a very good defense. So I liked that. I was surprised how much money he got. But then again, in comparison to Provorov, in comparison to Cody Ceci, he's worth it. So I guess it makes sense. But Washington won the East last year. They have a very good team, but it was a surprise win in the East, right? We didn't expect them to be that good. They're banking that every move they made last season is going to repeat itself and be good. And I think just like New York Rangers and Vancouver are banking that they can go back to 2 years. I think it's a fool's errand to think everything that went right last year is going to go right again. I think you got to improve your team somewhere. And I don't think Washington has. So expecting another 40-plus goal season from Ovechkin might be asking a bit much. And if he takes a step back, does anybody take a step up? Does anybody replace the goal lost? And is the goaltending that you found last year as good as it was last year? They're gambling that it is. I'm not so sure.
And finally, the Winnipeg Jets. We told you they lost Nikolai Ehlers. Not much as far as their activity. A couple of names that are familiar. Tanner Pearson, 1 year, $1 million. You've got Gustav Nyquist, 1 year, $3.25 million. And not much else.
Yeah, it's tough to lose Nikolai Ehlers, and then free agency is never going to be Winnipeg's friend. Not a lot of people want to go to Winnipeg to play, to live. So even though they have a great team, they won the President's Trophy, they've got elite talent, but it's not a destination for free agents. So they're going to have to make their moves via trade, and I would expect them to make some move later this summer to add somebody to replace those minutes and those points that Nikolai Ehlers they lost when he left for Carolina. So I don't think Winnipeg's quite done yet, but even if they are, they still should be good enough to make the playoffs with what they have. but there's no doubt they're not as good as the team that lost in the second round. And ultimately, what they need to do this offseason is figure out how can Connor Hellebuck win on the road in the playoffs.
Obviously, the free agency and all the moves that were made dominated the news this week. But is there anything else in regards to free agency that you wanted to comment on before we touched on a couple of quick things to close out the first period?
No, it wasn't as like you said. A lot of the sizzle was taken out of it by the moves on the last day of June, June 30th. So when we saw Marner traded, when you see players getting re-signed like Marchand, Ekblad, okay, now who's left? You go into July 1st and you're like, who's left? And then Nikolai Ehlers did not sign until the 3rd. So the sizzle of July 1st was not there. But we want to tell everybody while we're still here on YouTube, and if you're still listening, obviously you are, you wouldn't be hearing me say this. Unlike the entire rest of the NHL media, we do not take the summer off. We will continue to talk and give you everything that happens in the NHL every single week, all summer long. So whatever happens around the league, we will continue. It bothers me every year when I see the media basically say, that's it for me. See you all in September. See you all in October. It's like no other league does that. No, the baseball writers and media and reporters, basketball and the football reporters did not publicly announce, I'm done. I'm turning the phone off. You're not going to hear from me for 2 months. Kiss my ass, cowboy. No. Now they may actually take a break, but they don't announce it, and they're still tweeting or announcing something here and there. It bothers me every year that the entire Canadian media and the national NHL media tells us to go F ourselves for 2 months. Find something else to do, folks. We're not covering the sport. There's plenty to talk about, as we will show you for the next 2 months, and it always bothers me.
And have done for the last 9 years.
19 years.
No weeks off.
That's right.
Off. What did I say, 9?
That's right. Yeah.
Well, maybe it was because I was looking at my next list. We have a couple of notes real quick. Close out the first period, both involving the Red Wings. Mostly the Red Wings. After 9 seasons, forward Christian Fischer announced his retirement at the age of 28. He was a unrestricted free agent, 523 career games with the Coyotes, Red Wings, and Blue Jackets. Played 45 games in Detroit last year before he was waived and picked up by the Blue Jackets, where he played 1 game. Was a second-round draft pick in 2015. Chicago native, ends his career with 62 goals, 137 points. Again, with the Coyotes, Red Wings, and never had a point with Columbus, just 1 game. But
I will remember him best as a Blue Jacket.
Yes, you will. Adios to Alex Delvecchio, Hockey Hall of Famer, Detroit Red Wings legend, 3-time Stanley Cup winner in the 50s, passed away at the age of 93, spent his entire career with Detroit, played alongside Gordie Howe, 1,325 points in 1,671 games, won titles with the Red Wings in 52, 54, and 55, won the Lady Byng Trophy 3 times, 2-time All-Star, Hockey Hall of Fame in 1977, was part of the NHL 100, and also had several stints, and a couple of them at the same time, of being the general manager and head coach of the Detroit Red Wings. So his number 10 retired as well. A true Detroit legend, Red Wings legend, Alex Delvecchio passing away.
Yeah, sad to see that, but obviously a man whose legacy and achievements will never be forgotten in hockey. That is for sure, and especially in Detroit. He will always be remembered there. I'm betting there's at least one Delvecchio jersey on the back of a fan at every game. That's just one of those guys that is an icon of the franchise, and when you're an icon of an original 6, that's a great accomplishment. So a life well led for Alex Delvecchio.
All right. Any final thoughts before we close out the first period?
No, sir.
Very good. Well, that'll do it for our first period of the YouTube show. If you enjoyed it and you want to hear more, we've got 2 more periods of our podcast. Search Puck Podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcast. If you are already listening to the podcast, stay tuned. Second and third periods are coming right up.
I will say for the second period, we've got the all time, if the rosters for the Ducks, the Sharks, the Kings, and the Canucks are coming up in the second period, if the roster was only built of players they drafted who are still active in the NHL, or as you will see, if they're just still active at all.
All right, that'll do it for the YouTube show. I'm Eddie Garcia. He's Doug Stolhand, and we'll talk to you next time with another edition of the Puck Podcast.